Hello folks. Movo and Boya recently released an updated version of the VXR10 and the MM1. The new versions are the VXR10 Pro and the MM1 Plus. Both advertise identical features and look identical. I picked up the MM1 Plus to try it out. The two most obvious changes are the nicer shock mount, which is supposedly a true Rycote mount this time, and the addition of a headphone jack. The shock mount does feel much better than the last version. It seems like a slightly cheaper version than many other Rycote mounts, but I don't see any reason to believe that it isn't a true Rycote. It feels much less brittle than the previous version, and it should be much better at isolating from shock. The headphone jack has caused some frustration for some people because it doesn't actually provide monitoring of the microphone. What it actually does is provide headphone audio pass-through from a connected smartphone when connected with a TRRS cable. So it simply prevents you from having to unplug the microphone if you want to plug in wired headphones to your phone while the mic is connected. But again, it does not provide monitoring. It just would allow you to listen to media playback from your phone without having to unplug the microphone first. When connected to other devices like a camera or a portable recorder, the headphone jack will do nothing. As before, the microphone includes a furry windscreen and both TRS and TRRS cables. Compared to the original MM1 and VXR10, the microphone itself is quite a bit larger. Once the wind muff is in place, there isn't a striking difference though. And surprisingly, it is only a few grams heavier. That's pretty much it. It's a small shotgun microphone, not a whole lot to say. So far, I've been recording with the MM1 Plus connected to a portable audio recorder here in my sound booth without the furry windscreen in place. This isn't the most likely use case for this microphone, but it should give you an idea of how it sounds when used for voiceover in a fairly quiet, treated space. Now I've put the wind muff on so you can get an idea of how much difference it makes to the sound. Most furry windscreens don't change the tone too much, but this one does have a foam interior, so it might dampen down the high frequencies a bit. Now I'm in my garage just so you can see how this microphone does in a totally untreated space that has just a ton of reverb. I'm about 18 inches from the camera with the microphone pointed backwards at me. I do have the furry windscreen in place just because. And what you can see on the bench here is not related at all to this video, but maybe it's a sneak peek for something coming up pretty soon if you're interested. Now I'm outside and I'm about 18 inches from the microphone. The microphone is pointed at me and the noise from the road you can see is behind the microphone. I'm currently recording into a portable audio recorder. I imagine you heard the bad noise floor in the garage. I was recording directly into a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. The 3.5mm input jack on the 4K isn't super strong and it isn't perfectly clean, but I've never noticed anything like that before with this camera. I did a bunch of testing and it turns out that the issue is a little strange. I tried a bunch of microphones and cables with the Pocket 4K as well as with my audio recorder and a Sony camcorder. All the microphones, including the MM1 Plus, were fine with the audio recorder and on the Sony. On the Pocket 4K, most of the mics had no issue. But the MM1 Plus and the Rode Video Micro both had really high noise floors on the Pocket 4K. The preamps on the Pocket 4K must have an issue with the impedance of those microphones, or maybe it doesn't supply enough voltage for them. Whatever the reason, it's an odd issue that I doubt will come up for other cameras, but I was pretty confused for a while as to what the heck was going on, so I figured I'd share what I found. The furry windscreen on the MM1 Plus does about as well as expected, but the microphone still picks up a lot of sub-bass rumble in anything other than the lightest of breezes. Right now, there's just barely even a breath of air movement. The rumble it picks up is such a low frequency that it doesn't sound very loud and it barely interferes with the rest of the audio, yet it is actually strong enough to clip the audio. This leads to audio dropouts and popping due to clipping on an audio track that otherwise sounds okay. If I turn the 80 Hz low-cut filter in my recorder on, it completely goes away. But if your recorder or camera doesn't have that option, just be aware that wind can cause some issues with this mic. There is a little bit of a breeze today, and based on what the audio meters on my camera are doing, it doesn't seem like that wind muff is doing all that much to block it out. Applying a low-cut filter in post can help a lot. And in case you were wondering, the low-frequency rumble issue is nothing to do with the camera. The exact same thing happens with my recorder. The MM1 Plus is regularly priced at $50, but it was on sale for $40 the last time I looked. I appreciate the much improved shock mount, and I think it sounds better than the original MM1. If you don't care about the upgrades, I've seen the original MM1 and the VXR10 for around $20 lately, so they might be worth a look if you want to save some money. The Rode Video Micro has a better wind muff, and it rolls off the lower frequencies, so it does far better in wind. It's also smaller and has a bit better build quality if you're willing to spend a little more. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.